Jury selection is set to continue this week with detailed questioning of 250 would-be jurors by the judge, prosecutors, and Jackson's lawyers in the Michael Jackson molestation trial. After the jury is picked, the trial itself could last up to 6 months, and it could get ugly as at least one Jackson accuser is set to testify about very personal details in the entertainer's life. No one is watching the case closer than Michael Jackson's own mother, who may be his best and most articulate defender. I spent a day with her and her family at her California home, and in this exclusive interview, you'll see an amazing woman and a heartbroken mother who stands by her son. We begin with the raid on Neverland.
When I saw that line of cars, I should say a convoy, going into his ranch to do a search, I was shocked. I was devastated. I didn't know what was going on, and it was really, I felt it was stupid. And from that moment on, I haven't had a minute of peace, a minute of rest. I can't even sleep at night from thinking about it.
These charges, though, are very serious. When you look at child molestation, conspiracy, your son could face 20 years in prison.
Yes, he could.
How tough is that for you as a mother to think about that?
Well, it's hard for me to think about it because I know he haven't done anything. He don't deserve to go to prison because haven't. But I don't put it past them to try to railroad him or plant something on him.
How did he tell you the news?
He didn't. I heard it on television. And then we all rushed down there, and we just embraced him, and he just talked about it.
Does your son, Michael, open himself up to criticism at all? Because he admitted in that video, in the Bashir video, that he shares a bed with children. And a lot of people say that's not appropriate.
He didn't say, what he meant is he share his room with them. He sleep on the floor. People get the wrong impression. And if you have a dirty mind, that's how you're going to think. And most of the world is like that.
So you don't believe he was touching them inappropriately?
No, not at all.
Is he nervous? Because this has got to be scary.
I'm sure he must be worried because I'm worried in it, and it's him that is happening to, and I'm sure he is.
How sure are you that your son is not a child molester?
100% sure.
No doubt in your mind?
No doubt in my mind.
And why do you believe that?
I believe that for one reason. I know his character. I raised my son, and I raised him well. Just because he loved children, that don't mean you don't molest anything that you love or hurt anything that you love. And my son haven't done anything like that.
Did your son look you in the eye and say, I didn't do this?
Yes, yes, he sure has. And I know he didn't do it. And he told me, Mother, I would never do a thing like that.
Have you seen a change in him since he's been accused this time around? This has got to change somebody.
Yes, I've seen a change in him. He's not around children as much.
Do you plan to go to the court when you can?
Yes, I'm planning to be there all the time. It's not fair that the judge won't let us go in now. I don't think it's fair.
Do you think he can get a fair trial in Santa Maria?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Do you think the trial should be moved to somewhere else?
Yes, I do.
Do you feel Santa Maria is too conservative of a community?
Probably. Probably.
For an African-American man in Santa Maria, it would be tough?
Probably. And I hear there's a lot of skinheads down in that area. And there's a lot of, what do you say, Aryan Nation or something. And I hear that Snutten's son is one.
Who is he most angry with of all this?
I think it's Tom Sneddon, because he knows it's a personal vendetta that Tom Sneddon has against him.
Are you worried that these charges are always going to stain your son for the rest of his life?
I know they will.
And we're going to have a lot more with Michael's mother, Katherine, an amazing woman, in just a few minutes. But first, let's quickly bring in our panel. We've got former San Francisco Assistant DA Jim Hammer, who is in the court this week, also criminal defense attorney Steve Crone, former O.J. Simpson jury consultant Richard Gabriel, and joining us right now on the phone from the Jackson family home is Jackson family attorney Deb Opry. Deb, first of all, Katherine is an amazing defender. I mean, if Michael's going to be half as good as she is if he takes the stand, he's going to be effective.
Katherine could only be the mother of Michael Jackson. She spoke from her heart, and I think her words are her words, and I was very taken with him, as I'm sure the public is taken with him. I don't know what else to say other than they were the words of a mother.
Yeah, absolutely, and she was just an amazing woman. I was very impressed with her. You know, Jim, what about the aspect of a fair trial? She hit on something, and if you look, you were in court this week, all the folks in there, I mean, hundreds of them, very few minorities. Can Michael Jackson get a fair trial?
I think that's a really good question. We're only going to start to find out in the next week or two. That was a very touching interview, and you could feel really the pain in her. But when you walk into that courtroom, Rita, you can see that there's literally a handful of African Americans out of hundreds and hundreds of jurors. That is the makeup of Santa Barbara County. I think it only has 3 or 4% African Americans. This was a largely white, middle-class, working-class jury. And Rita, the question for me is, can those kind of people even relate to Michael Jackson, who seems so different than anybody else in that courtroom?
Yeah, and Richard Gabriel, let me show you some of the questions. First of all, the jury got a questionnaire, and I want to start with the first one about sexual behavior. This is one of the questions. Have you or any relative or close friend ever been the victim of inappropriate sexual behavior of any kind? Richard, do you want someone like that on the jury if you're the prosecutor or not?
Well, it really can cut both ways. I think for the most part, prosecutors do want that because those people have been victimized. They're highly sensitized to what could be inappropriate contact, and it's such a highly charged emotional issue for those particular people. But those are people also who could have been very seriously abused and also can look very harshly on an accuser and say, I know I was abused. I'm not sure this young man actually meets the criteria for somebody who actually has been abused.
No,
so they can be very judgmental.
Great points. Let me show another question, and this is for Steve Crone, but let me show one of the jury questionnaire questions. It is, how much news have you read or watched about the current Michael Jackson case? And Katherine points this out. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in America who hasn't heard about the Michael Jackson case, and that could cut both ways. It could be someone who's caught up in his celebrity, but it has to be someone, Steve, for this man to get a fair trial, someone who's not caught up with emotion and who only looks at the facts.
You're right, Rita. And one thing that hasn't been discussed tonight is that Tom Mesereau, who's a fine lawyer, never made a motion to change venue. We know in the Scott Peterson case that Mark Garagos did, and it was changed. Now, he's not in a position to now complain about the makeup of the jury panel, given the fact that he didn't do anything to try and change it.
And again, he's not necessarily complaining. Maybe he sees something in this jury. Maybe he's looking for someone who feels that they were railroaded by the government and can understand Michael's sense that he feels railroaded.
And I would suggest that you're correct, Rita.
And Tom Mesereau may just feel that the people in that area might be more sympathetic to Michael Jackson, even if they are not African Americans, and there are very few minorities. He made that decision, and he decided not to move to change venue, and obviously it was a tactical decision.
All right, and Deb, hold on to that thought, because we're going to have a lot more. In fact, up next, a rare glimpse inside the Jackson family home, plus much more of my exclusive interview with this amazing woman, Michael's mom. And then, remembering Ronald Reagan on the eve of his 94th birthday. We'll show you some new details about the Gipper. That's all coming up. Stay tuned. Michael Jackson spent his early childhood years in Gary, Indiana, but spent most of his growing up at a beautiful home in Encino, California, just outside of L.A. His sister-in-law gave us an exclusive tour of what it was like growing up Jackson. Take a look. So we're now in a loft over the garage.
Yes.
This is amazing, this photo here. This is Michael.
Yes, he must have been like 9 years old there. And this was his special room. He put everybody out, and he wouldn't let nobody come in here until he finished all these pictures.
Right here it says, to take a picture is to capture a moment, to stop time, to preserve the way we were. He wrote this?
Yes.
It's really beautiful. Over here, I see tons of photos just plastered up
yes.
against the wall. Michael did all of this?
All of this. And there's more with all his friends, and his mom's driver's license right there.
What does she think of the picture?
Oh, she loves it. No, she can't. She don't like it.
This is his mother's driver's license.
Yes, this is Michael's report card. You can see all A's.
Except, what is this work habits? There's a few E's in work habits.
Excellent.
Oh, E for excellent,
That means
okay.
excellent.
What is this room? What do you call this room?
This is called the sinking living room. We put the fireplace, and we're not too much here.
Tell me about the clock.
I think the clock was brought from London that belongs to a church. And he fell in love, and they gave it to him.
This is a beautiful dining room.
Thank you. Here is where we all get together, and we put tables in each part so we could all sit down when we have family day.
Because the family's a big family, you need a lot of chairs.
Oh yes, definitely. And then we do it, we open the doors, and we do it between inside and outside. Thanksgiving, you know.
It's beautiful. And our thanks to Alejandro Jackson for that tour. We got that tour after we interviewed Michael's mom, Katherine, who told me she feels in part responsible for the dilemma that her son is in right now.
I always feel that I didn't prepare my children for the real world, and I kept them in most of the time. And even after, and then right after then, they went into show business.
Did Michael maybe miss out in his childhood a little bit because he became a star so quick?
Yes, he did. He missed out on it a lot because he was, by him being the lead singer, he was in the studio a lot.
How tough is it to hear some of the things that they call your son, Wacko Jacko? That's got to cut like a knife.
Gosh, yes, it does. If my son was wacko, he wouldn't be where he is today.
Some people say someone who does plastic surgery and loves kids, he's different. You got to admit he's different than the average person.
Yeah, he's different because I think he's a good person. He's had plastic surgery, so what? A lot of people have had plastic surgery. His face is whitened because he's had the disease, and instead of having it spotted like a cow or something like that, he just decided to just do the whole thing because he could afford to do it.
Does he love children so much? Because I've been told he feels so, I guess, burned by adults, whether it's managers, financial advisors, everyone trying to kind of use him.
Everybody, oh yes, they do.
Do you feel he loves children because there's an innocence about them
Yes.
that adults don't have?
Yes.
And he feels used by managers and financial advisors, so he turns to children because he feels they're the only ones he can trust. Is that true?
That's true.
Do you have a close relationship with him?
We talk on the phone for hours sometime when he called, you know, and we just talk about things, different things.
And you're going to be by your son all the way?
Yeah, of course. It's my son, and I love him.
Incredible lady. Our thanks to Katherine Jackson. Let's bring back in our panel, and I want to go to Deb Opry, who's at the family home right now. Deb, you know what I was so struck by after spending the day with Katherine and everyone else there? Just the deep love that that family has. And there's a much stronger bond, Deb, that the mom has with Michael that I think anyone's ever imagined. She was telling me that they talk on the phone all the time. They're really close.
You know, Rita, I'm just going to be blunt because that's my personality. I am sick of hearing these reporters and media people saying, I know they don't like each other, they turn on each other, they're not close. These people don't know what they're talking about, and a lot of these reporters have made careers for themselves coming up with this garbage. I'm a prime witness to tell you, in the time I've known the Jackson family, they are incredible. They love each other. I don't know how many more times I can tell you that. You will not meet a closer family than the Jackson family.
And I saw that love. I mean, it was really beautiful. Jim, you know, you've dealt with a lot of cases. It is gut-wrenching for a family. And, you know, when I looked at Katherine and said, how tough is it going to be to hear these accusations? That is
I'll tell you,
tough.
my heart goes out to her. I think that interview was very powerful, Rita, and I've got to think, and I'll just say it, I think all this is part of a media strategy to possibly affect jurors and remind people about the good things about Michael Jackson. It's one of the prime defenses in this case, that his character is such that he would never hurt a kid, and I think if they get 1 or 2 jurors to believe that, Rita, that could save him from a conviction in this case.
And real quick, Richard Gabriel, the distinction is you got to get somebody on the juror who says, look, maybe he isn't like me or you, but on the other hand, does that make him a molester? That's what the defense is looking for, someone who can separate, right?
They're trying to create a balance of information. For the most part, they've heard so much about his eccentricities and his strange behavior. The prosecution is hoping that strange behavior equates to a pattern of pedophilia. The defense wants to say he's a human being, he's got a lot of family love,
okay, guys.
He would not hurt kids.
That's it. Thank you very much. And our thanks to Katherine Jackson for an amazing interview. We're going to have Ronald Reagan's story coming up.
Fox News Radio. You can hear the difference.